Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. There is a significant energy upsurge that is occurring right now due to a variety of factors. And this is not an energy surge just here on Earth, though this is a very strong energy surge that's occurring right here on this planet, but it's also rippling out across the solar system. Multiple waves of energy are being broadcast out, most of them specifically going to Mars and Jupiter. And so there is this energy wave that's broadcasting out from the center of the solar system with the sun out to the inner planets and even out to Jupiter and beyond. Now, the energy surge that's occurring right now in terms of Earth-facing energy is mostly coming from this sunspot group here, 4055. It has grown dramatically over the past 48 hours, but even going back to 72 hours, but it's really getting wild. Check out how active it is now. It looks like it is about to go nuts and give us a high M-class flare or even an X-class flare. And this in general has just been increasing the X-ray flux that we've been receiving here on Earth for about the past 36 hours. There's a clear uptrend. We'll check out the data. And there's also, of course, a full moon today. And so we naturally have an increase in the energy during a full moon because we have more light being reflected from the moon back to Earth. This is light from the solar system, but it's also light from outside the solar system, even the galaxy. And there's an interesting idea with information that information doesn't necessarily have an intensity to it. It's just, is there information or not? And just the fact that you receive information is all that's necessary to trigger a change or some sort of, state change, right? So the intensity of the information doesn't matter in terms of the quantum field. It's just, is it there? And then that triggers the change, which then could have a much larger effect in our more material reality. And so we're receiving a lot of information right now, not only from the sun, but also from beyond the solar system because we have the full moon. That happens every 28 days, but it is lining up with this energy surge right here. And then there's been a whole bunch of coronal mass ejections, a bunch of plasma basically that has launched off from just beyond the far side of the sun over here. And that is rippling out to Mars and Jupiter and beyond. So this is the solar system energy surge that's occurring. Doug Laurie, thank you so much for the extremely generous super thanks. That is incredible. That is like, wow. So energy surge, folks. It is happening. Blessings to all of you here watching this video, whether it's live or on the replay. Let us get into it. Let's check out first and foremost these solar flares that have been occurring in our 131 angstrom view. Here we have our graphic going from the 10th of April up to today. And look at how it really starts to get wild there. Basically, the activity ramped up from a low C class up to high C class and then up to M class. So we've been having a pretty big increase, order of magnitude plus increase in X-ray flux as a result of this sunspot group there, 4055. And then we have 4058 above it, which is not that big, but you do see a little bit of a combination pair there. The very end, you'll see this plasma filament that launched. So we got that one as well. That one just blasted off. I think that's not going to impact us. Give this a watch up here because it's launching pretty much to the north. But we do see that happening at the very end. There it is. Pretty high velocity though. So in general, there just seems to be an increase in the energies at this moment in time. Before we get to the coronagraph and we look at all these waves of energy that have launched to Mars and Jupiter over the past 2 weeks, let's just actually look at our X-ray flux so you can see this upsurge I'm talking about very clearly. And then I also want to look at the Schumann resonances because we've been seeing some interesting energy activations across the Schumann resonances and not just in one location, which is why I'm reporting on it today. Often you get it just like one single location. It's just local weather. Today, it seems to be a little bit more of a global phenomenon. John, thank you for the super thanks. And also back to Doug Laurie, thank you so much for the additional super thanks. That's incredible. So let's check out our X-ray flux and we just go right here to do that. Here we have our 7 days, okay? So what is this? This is one of the most vibrational wavelengths of light, X-rays. When you go to get your bones checked or something like that, they're using the same frequency of light. The sun emits X-rays. And the amount of X-ray radiation from the sun goes up multiple orders of magnitude, 100x, 1000x, going from solar minimum to maximum. So this is where we were. We were in this zone in between 10 to negative 6 and 10 to negative 5 watts per square meter. That is the C class zone. They give it a designation, C class. We are at the low end of that, about 2 or so. We see this is a log scale. That goes back to April 6th. But look at how things started to increase, first with the appearance and growth of 4055, and then look at that ramp up right there. So now instead of being low C class, we're getting up to that C to M boundary, because we even had some M class flares today, just a few hours ago, that got quite up there. If you look at that, we get to our peaks. Here we see it's about two flare, and then a 2.3 or so, 2.7 actually, and then this one right here is a 2.3, and then that one's like a 1.3. So some M-class flares getting up into higher values, specifically that 2.7, but it just seems to basically be this kind of boiling activity, because if we go back here, we see that it's basically just continuously going. It's not like one flare and then it's like done. It's just basically growing and growing and growing. And the thing about this too is that this hasn't been like a high M class or an X class flare yet. So it hasn't really dissipated its energy. See how none of it has actually like launched? Like that little outburst that occurred up there, it actually launched out. Nothing's launched out there. It's really just been all kind of staying internal. And it could stay internal. This could rotate all the way off the limb and start rotating around and never actually have a big explosion where it launches stuff out into space. But when we see stuff like this, it's often about to go. And so I was reporting on this yesterday. It only got more active since then. And we're watching this right now. We could have an X-class flare on this live stream. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Let us look at what happened over the past 2 weeks or so as it relates to these energy waves launching out from the sun out towards Mars and Jupiter. Because this is the solar system energy surge. That's the first one, March 28th, a big coronal mass ejection. Basically, just watch this side. See how many coronal mass ejections have been launched from that side over the past 2 weeks? There's another big one. That's the second big one sent to Jupiter. Then there's that one right there, another one. And it basically just goes on and on and on. And this is just what happened recently. Boom, now it's recycled. So you see how many of these coronal mass ejections have been launched out towards that part of the solar system. And let's actually look specifically at our solar system here with an application called Solar System Scope. And this is set for today. And here we have the Earth, and we have Venus and Mercury. Today's the full moon, coming up in just about 6 hours or so, 6-7 hours, a little under 7 hours from right now. It's at 5:30 or so Pacific Daylight Time, 5:30 p.m. So just under like 6 hours. Venus will go direct immediately afterwards. So she's been retrograde. It's a 40-day long period. The Venus retrograde lasts 40 days. She's about to go directly afterwards. So that is also signaling a shift in the energy. But again, we'll look at the sun here from Earth's perspective. So there is the Earth, there's the sun, right? If things are launching from the side, from our perspective, then they're going out this direction. So if we zoom it more that direction, look, we have Jupiter there in that position. Anything that's launching a little bit more aligned with Earth will go to Mars. And even Uranus is probably going to be hit with some of this stuff because it's further back, and these coronal mass ejections expand out as they propagate out. Jupiter's at 5 astronomical units. Uranus is at 20. So that's plenty of time for these to expand, though it'll take longer to reach them. So if we're talking about how the archetypal expressions and the energies of these planets will change due to this increased solar forcing, it's going to hit later on with Uranus. Actually, probably more like around the Uranus Cazimi in May. I think that's like roughly May 17th. Jupiter already is being activated by that first set that launched on March 28th, but it's going to continue to get hit by those coronal mass ejections for like the next few weeks. And then I think Mars is going to get some flank impacts because it's not exactly in line with Earth, but it's not that far off of it. So it's only probably going to get flank impacts, but that also changes the energies on Earth on Mars as well. We can check this out. A new video came out, which is interesting, by NASA showing the impact of a enhanced solar wind or a solar storm on Mars induced magnetosphere, because it doesn't have a global magnetic field. There's only remnant magnetization in certain parts of the crust due to the Martian geology. But it does have an atmosphere. It's not that strong, but it does have an atmosphere which gets ionized, and that then induces a magnetic field when there's enhanced solar wind. So we're seeing let's keep the chat focused, please. So we have this increased solar wind passing by Mars at this moment in time, and that's in general also strengthening those Martial energies. So we have this increase in Jupiterian energy, this increase in Mars energy, and this increase in Earth energy at this moment in time. Uranus will be a little bit further down the line, probably more like end of April and into May. An interesting thing to note about Mars and Jupiter is that actually right now they're making a trine in the sky. But here we go. Jupiter, Sirius, and Mars. Look at that nice triangle that they're making right now. This is a really beautiful object to look at in the sky. Anyone can do this. You go out, the sun sets, Jupiter will show up as a really bright evening star. Sirius is about the same brightness as of this moment in time. Jupiter will have a slight yellowish tint. Sirius is nice and white. Find the two of them, they'll line up. You'll actually will see Betelgeuse in the middle. Really easy is that you just find the constellation of Orion. There's the belt. You'll see Orion right in between Jupiter and Sirius is Orion. Then you just go up and you'll see a very bright red object. That's Mars. So you get this really nice trine right now in the sky, which is speaking to harmony and everything, though there is Mars involved. So this is just a nice thing to go out and see. Thank you, Nate, for the super thanks. Let me show that on screen really quick. It's a really nice message. Nate says, you are all beautiful. I cannot express how grateful I am for stumbling upon this live. Please know you have value, you are loved, you have purpose. Well, thank you so much, Nate. That's a wonderful message to share. And that is really the message of this trine right here, because you have this nice configuration. I think this is much more important than, well, I haven't heard any other astrologers talking about this, because most of them are looking at charts and not actually looking outside, which is just an unfortunate truth. I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of amazing work, but we also just need to be looking outside a bit more, because you can't see a trine like in a chart, right? Where you have this one planet there, another one there. You actually can't see that in the sky. This you can see. So a Paleolithic man or a Neolithic woman or someone back in ancient Babylon, right? They would be able to go outside and see that in the sky. It's a very clear arrangement. So I think this is really important. And you'll notice also another little interesting thing. We have Sirius and Betelgeuse there forming this line. I don't know the significance of this, but I think it's interesting. Jupiter is going to soon pass and form a very nice line with those two. And that only happens once every 12 years. Because Jupiter takes 12 years to go through the entire night sky, the zodiac. It's a 12-year cycle. So it's only reaching this alignment there with Sirius and Betelgeuse, which form this all the time because of where they are. It only hits that once every 12 years. So I think that's also significant too, from like a more of a Sumerian, Babylonian perspective, things of that nature. We're actually out there looking at the sky, seeing these geometric relationships. I think just geometry itself is so important, like sacred geometry. Are we seeing sacred geometry in the sky? Yes, we are right now. Jupiter, Sirius, Mars. So and look, we even have a star right there basically on that alignment as well. This is active all of April. Starts to kind of fade off with the triangle in May. So I wanted to just show that to everybody. And I also want to talk about, so we have Jupiter and Mars, right? The two planets are being energized by these coronal mass ejections are forming this trine in the sky, and Sirius is the brightest and the strongest star basically in our night sky, only like 8 light years away. So that's just a big energy furnace as well, a big energy amplifier as well. So, you see how this all kind of connects together. Now, I want to show this Earth energy burst that is happening right now. Here we have our Schumann resonances. This is out of Tomsk, Russia. And you see these Schumann resonances here, these lines going across. And this is for the past 3 days. So this goes back to April 10th and then all the way to the 12th. This is universal time +7, UTC +7. That's the time zone for Tomsk, Russia. So you can convert to your own local time. This was a few hours ago. This occurred a few hours ago. It's an increase in the power. We see our power legend there. So low power with these darker colors, and then it goes up in intensity and power as you go through the reds and into the whites. And what we're looking at here is our vertical electric field. This is going from 0 to 40 hertz. What's a hertz? It's 1 cycle per second. 1 hertz is 1 cycle per second. So that's like your heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. If you have 5 hertz, it's a lot faster, right? So these are basically measuring vibrations going from 0 to 40 hertz. And this is the vertical electric field. So you're measuring the flow of energy going from the ground surface up to the ionosphere. And you're measuring the frequency, the dominant frequencies of that flow of energy going from the ground up to the ionosphere, which is about 50, 100 kilometers up. You see Schumann resonances are always propagating along that electric field going vertically. That's the first mode at about 7.8 hertz, mode 2, 14 hertz, mode 3 at 20, 26 hertz, and then you have a 33 hertz one and 39. They apply a filter for this data going from 32 hertz and up to 40 hertz. That's why you see this steep drop off in the colors right there, because they start to apply a filter to the data. If you're wondering that, if you're someone that looks at this stuff all the time, this is some of the technical stuff that very few people report on, but it's important to know. So what is this? All of a sudden we get this big burst of energy across the entire frequency range. Well, normally when you see something like this is related to atmospheric phenomenon that's happening locally. You get a thunderstorm passing overhead. You get an electrified rain cloud sweeping nearby or overhead. Even like snow it's very similar dynamics with snow, or even really thick cloud cover and haze can cause in general just a longer term increase in the background vertical electric field. Doesn't mean the global Schumann resonances are increasing. It's a local effect, but they had good weather today. They actually had a bit of a heat wave. And according to the forecast out of Tomsk, Russia, it was I think it was partly cloudy, but basically nothing that would make you think that there was some sort of significant change in terms of atmospheric weather. So that is interesting that we had this, what you can call an earth burst, an earth energy burst, where all of a sudden there was this increase in the background vertical electric field, which is connected to the ionosphere. Well, we were talking about the ionosphere earlier. Let's go back to that right here. We've been seeing this increase in X-ray flux from the sun reaching Earth's ionosphere. So you have this charging of the ionosphere that's occurring right now, whereas it's been more decharged for days now. Now you have this sudden change. Often it's not the intensity of the change, it's the fact that there is a change that triggers significant shifts. That's a more quantum perspective. And so we've been seeing now this earth burst here with the data from Tomsk, but we can also look at our data out of Hungary. And we see here a very similar story. Here they measure the magnetic fields as well, but look at the vertical electric field. This time it's 0 at the bottom, 45 hertz up top. We see the Schumann resonances, those bands right there again, okay? Look at that increase in energy coming up as well from the lower frequencies. And here they use a ball antenna. So it's a lot more stable and fixed, whereas in Tomsk, they're using this wire, this string that can sometimes vibrate in the wind. And so if you're seeing an increase in the energy out of Hungary, in Sopron, Hungary, and there's no atmospheric activity like rain or thunderstorm or whatever, then that's another clue that there's something happening, perhaps. Can't say definitively, but if we go to our meteorological measurements, we can go here and we'll see, there's a few things to look at here, but the most important is if you look at our rain at the bottom, there's been no rain in Hungary for the day. That's typically when you see an increase in that Schumann power across the Schumann frequencies. Generally, almost every single time, you'll see some rain or some sort of weather that happens exactly at the exact same time because it's causing that. And most people ignore that, or they're just not aware of that. But as we see, according to meteorological measurements, no rain, and everything else basically looks normal. A little bit of wind at times, but nothing really outside of the ordinary. Pressure and humidity all effectively look normal. Temperature, right? It's just like a normal day. Thank you for the super thanks, Rob, and for some of the other super thanks that have come in. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So we're seeing it's not exactly the same. These are different parts of the globe, but we are also seeing at the same time as that Earth burst in Tomsk, we're seeing effectively what you can call an Earth energy burst also in Hungary. And we can go to vlf.it for another one. Let me pull that up. vlf.it. See what we got. And here we have our Schumann resonances out of Italy. And there's not anything super special with these, but I do want to scroll down to our more weekly view. Here we have 6 days of data. And so you will notice how things have been increasing. Now they are kind of fading here with Italy. So again, this is different. They have a different setup. They apply different data filters and ways to process the data to it. So everything, you have to take all this and kind of look at it a little bit blurry a little bit. That makes sense, right? You can't look too finely at anything or else you're not going to make the connections. But we do see in general just how these energies kind of went on this upwelling, going from back here, which is the 7th of April, and then really reaching this nice higher energy period there on the 10th, and then effectively maintaining that. Maybe a bit of a drop off today. But in general, these 2 days looking pretty strong. So there we see an increase in general in that vertical electric field, the Schumann resonances as well. And you can see the nice thing about this data out of Cumiana, Italy, is you can see them going all the way up. So these resonances overlap with our brainwaves, our heart rhythms, our biorhythms. When they change, we change. We are receivers to them. We are also transmitters of them. So we have this special relationship with them. They connect to our DNA. They influence the expression of DNA and how our cells, effectively their behaviors and how they talk to each other. There's so many fascinating rabbit holes to explore with this. Once you explore quite a few of them, then things really start to be like, oh, wow, this is crazy in a good way. So here you see the first mode, second mode, third mode, fourth mode. This is 33 hertz. There's 39. It goes up to 45. We even see going up here to like the 50 hertz plus range. They get very low in their power, but we see them also continuing up through the entire spectrum here, going from 0 to like 100 plus hertz. So these things are very interesting. One of the ideas is that you want to increase your resonance with these higher frequencies, because in general, with like the brain, for example, when you have greater complete brainwave synchronicity across like the gamma band, that's when you have more of these like sudden insights and realizations, and you put things together. You're able to have different parts of the brain exchange information at a higher throughput. And to do that, you need the more foundational modes of the Schumann resonances or your brain waves to be in coherence. Thank you, Margarita Diaz, for these super thanks. Show that right there. Best in the solar system. So when you have stronger power in the foundational modes, like again, 7.8 hertz, 14 hertz, these are the frequencies that the entire brain is able to connect to simultaneously because they're lower frequency. They don't attenuate into the brain easily. But the higher frequencies won't make it all the way. So they have to hear the drummer that's, effectively that drum beat, and then they both play at the same time. It's like an orchestra. You have the flute player over here, and you have the trumpet player over there, and they can't necessarily listen to each other, but they both watch the conductor. But if they're able to, then you are able to have that exchange of information. So that's what's happening effectively with these sort of earth bursts, which is really interesting. Now, if we go over to our data from the British Geological Survey, we are seeing some interesting things here. This is the data for yesterday. They always have a 1-day delay. Here's April 11th. Really weird data anomaly there in our north-south channel. This is the magnetic field, but we see our Schumann resonances here. It's a different scale. So we go from 0 a.m. universal time up to 24 right there. So it goes like this in terms of time, and we go, our x-axis is frequency going to 50 hertz. So I don't know why there is that missing chunk. It's actually not a missing chunk of data. It's just like a totally like some sort of data error or something. But that occurred yesterday. Here we see our east-west channel. And actually, I can pull up. Let me pull up something interesting for you all. I can pull up this data and show you the change that's been occurring in the Schumann resonances effectively for the past few weeks now, because we have our data here going all the way back to January 2nd. I started collecting this basically at the beginning of 2025. And so maybe I can zoom in a bit on these so you see them all a little better. But just take note of the colors. Thank you, Nate, for all the memberships and for joining. That's awesome. Thank you so much, bro. So notice the colors here, okay? Now we're going to scroll down, and now we're in February here, okay? And now we get to March. We get specifically to the end of March. I made a video on this right there. But notice all of a sudden the change that occurs. Let me step off so you can see this a little better. And yeah, you'll notice again, we have these colors are all looking normal. And then look at the change that's occurred recently. All of a sudden, the increased power starts being seen across the days. There's 2 spectrograms per day. There's north, south, and east-west channel. But really starting with this guy right there, all of a sudden the power started kind of being higher in general. And what's so interesting about this, again, there's the before, there's the after. See the change? Even days like this was interesting. This was the 3rd of April right there in the north-south channel. I can't say exactly what's causing all of that, but the one thing to be mindful of again is local weather. If you have like a lot of rainstorm or something, it's going to increase the power in these fields. But the United Kingdom has had insanely nice weather basically for all of March. They've had very little rain. It's been like some places haven't had rain in I think like a month now. So they haven't had the atmospheric disturbances that would explain these sort of changes that we've been seeing in the Schumann resonances. Instead, right as that weather got nice in the United Kingdom, right back in January, February, I'm sure it was dismal. Sorry for everyone living there, but in general, that's kind of a dismal time for the UK. But look at when the weather was nice, we actually saw what you'd expect when the weather is not nice. We saw the power go up in the Schumann resonances. Why? I don't exactly know. It could be more of a global effect. They are fairly close to that north magnetic pole. So interesting. Oh, and these 2, by the way, that's for like 2012. That's this old data. But so very interesting. I don't know I can't explain exactly what we're seeing, but I just wanted to bring that to your awareness. And yeah, today we have this weird data glitch, you could say, or that's actually yesterday. Again, this is April 11th. We had a 6.1 earthquake also yesterday, but it was actually today, very early morning, 3:47 a.m. Universal Time, 6.1 Papua New Guinea. First earthquake that we've had over magnitude of 6 since April 4th when we had a 6.9 in Papua New Guinea. So we had this period where earthquake activity was extremely heightened, a global seismic burst starting back to about March 25th. You can even go to the 21st, but really kicked off on the 28th because of the 7.7 earthquake in Myanmar, Burma. Then a whole bunch of earthquakes that followed, a magnitude 7 in Tonga. There's magnitude 6.9s that occurred. Then things cool off and went straight down to the border of like moderate to low activity. So it was like moderate and low activity immediately after the 4th of April. Now we're back to increased activity with the 6.1. So we'll see if we continue to get more earthquakes, but that's the most significant earthquake that we've had in a week now. It's not like we never get magnitude 6s, but it was interesting to see this global seismic burst occur, and then it dropped so fast, so quickly, and now we've had a little bit of increase, but we don't know if it'll sustain. We don't know when the next megaquake will be. I've talked about that. We just don't know when that's going to happen. Magnitude 9 earthquake coming, who knows? We know that we get them. They're not impossible. Magnitude 8 earthquakes, magnitude 9 earthquakes, they happen. Magnitude 9s are pretty rare, but they do happen. And I'm not sure if there's really anything else I wanted to show you other than just looking at this sunspot here. We can just actually look at this sunspot. Look at that. This thing is like ready to go. And see, the thing is, normally a sunspot, it pulls apart like this, and these cores get further away from each other, and that kind of reduces its explosivity, you could say. But what's been happening is they've been spreading out. They've actually also both have gone taller, like vertically. So there's been new cores opening up vertically, and they've been filling in with new sunspot cores and flux in general coming in to fill in the gap. That's why this has been so active. So it's very likely, maybe not very likely, but it's definitely possible that we get an X-class flare from this guy. High M-class flare, X-class flare, I would not at all write that off. I would actually bet on it. I would bet on that over the next 48 hours. And if that happens, we'll get a proton radiation storm, almost surely. That thing would launch a whole bunch of solar energetic particles our way, and that is then going to cause a further increase in this Earth energy surge. But there is one more thing I wanted to talk about. Let me pull that up. And that is the fact that we have a full moon tonight. So that's an additional energy amplifier that we're experiencing. So here's our chart for this. This is a geocentric Western tropical astrology chart, just so we can see the geometry and everything. I'm not going to go into the signs and where they are and the different planets and points. I'm just really just showing you where these different planets and points are in relation to the Earth. So we see that the full moon is opposite the sun. The sun right now is, what is a full moon? It's basically the moon reflecting sunlight plus also more. So we have this increased activity on the sun, and the moon is reflecting even more of that back towards us. There is one other thing that I can show you, which verifies this further. And that is the fact that the moon is very reflective of light. Here we see radio wave reflections of the Milky Way on the moon. The moon is always reflecting, for example, the radio emissions of the Milky Way. This is radio and also microwave emissions. So we're getting that information from the Milky Way as a whole directly from the moon, and that's greatest during a full moon. This is at 150 megahertz, which Dieter Breuers thinks is a very special frequency of energy that has a lot of healing potential. So shout out to him. He's an awesome guy. And this is also a frequency that the sun emits as well. So there's some special biologic effects. There's evidence for that, at least, of 150 megahertz and being like a healing wave of energy. I actually am going to be making a video on that at some point. But here we look at our ultraviolet and visible images of the moon. So we know the moon reflects visible light. It's also reflecting ultraviolet light. It's also reflecting X-rays. So all that X-ray flux from the sun is also further being reflected by the moon back towards us. Here we have mid-infrared, and here we have gamma rays. The moon is actually one of the strongest gamma ray emitters, actually more reflectors, in our solar system because it's close to us. Because of its albedo and its reflectivity, it pulls in all these gamma rays from outside the solar system and reflects them. So it's a very bright gamma ray object for us here on Earth. And we see it very brightly in that specific wavelength. It's brighter than the sun, typically, in gamma rays than the sun is. So the moon is always pumping this energy into the Earth, except during new moons when it has no reflectivity because it's in front of the sun. Though we will see these sort of reflections here during a new moon, because this is from the Milky Way in general. We'd also still see gamma ray reflections during a new moon. But during a full moon, you get all this combined together, and this synergy of that starts to unfold, right? You have the information contained with the Milky Way reflections. You have the information from the solar light reflections. You have the information from the interstellar and intergalactic gamma ray reflections, all of them creating a unique quantum energy signal that then the Earth picks up. And I want to read just something from the book A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple. And this is just from the end here. And this is actually some of the work of David Bohm, who I am really a big fan of. And basically says the effect of the quantum field upon the particle field depends only on the form of the field. So how the quantum field, the underlying implicate order, affects the explicate order, particles, and more material reality depends only on the form of the quantum field, not upon its amplitude. So there's not necessarily an intensity or an amplitude to what Bohm believes is, this quantum field of potential and manifestation and realization, you could say. It's just what is the actual shape and the form itself of the field. That is then what informs this cascade up into material reality that we experience. And so that is why I wanted to show you Stellarium. And I wanted to show you this trine that we have, because we have all this energy that's been shot off from the sun since March 28th to Jupiter, and also to some aspect to Mars. And we have this configuration in the sky between Sirius, Jupiter, and Mars. Sirius being only 8 light years away, very, very bright, the brightest star in the sky. So we see this really nice trine configuration. There is this expression in the quantum field. And sometimes we see these expressions very clearly, for example, in the night sky like this, or in other ways, right? Synchronicities, whatever. And it doesn't depend on the amplitude. It's not like we're measuring specifically how much light is being emitted by these three and creating like a combined light curve or something like. And from this perspective, that doesn't matter. It's just the fact that we see this sacred geometry expressing itself that is giving us a clue that that sacred geometry, that harmony, because this is a trine, this is a nice, nearly equilateral triangle, right? That is also expressing itself in other ways fractally across our reality and our universe. So these are some really nice energies that we have coming in. I also talked about Jupiter. He's the greater benefic. A lot of really, we have to be very thankful for Jupiter. He protects us from a lot of comets and asteroids, right? We have the asteroid belt because of Jupiter kind of containing a lot of these rogue objects that otherwise, could hit Earth and cause massive changes and cataclysmic events. We have Jupiter to thank for that. Jupiter also potentially modulates the solar cycle because its orbit is 12 years around the sun. The sun has a 12-year solar cycle. There is evidence connecting the two of them together. People have done that research and made a compelling case on that. And we know that Jupiter is emitting these radio frequency emissions that we can pick up on Earth. It's also emitting Jovian flux, which we can also detect here on Earth. So it's working with the solar system and also Earth specifically very closely energetically and to a significant degree, and also has these more protective benefic effects as well, both from an astronomical perspective, like the fact that it's protecting us from these asteroids and comets, redirecting them, absorbing them, creating the asteroid belt, but also from an astrological perspective. People for thousands of years have noticed the benevolent effects of Jupiter. And so I just think this is quite important. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because you can go out and see this yourself. Just go out at night. If you have clear skies, you will see this really nice equilateral trine between Mars, Sirius, and Jupiter. Now, is it a trine in terms of Earth geocentric position? No. But in terms of our perspective, seeing them in a triangle, that's what it is. And anyone could see this, even going back to Paleolithic times. You're out there, you have the campfire, you're eating woolly mammoth, and you look up and you see that, and you probably start to think about a few things and wonder and admire and be in awe of the cosmos. So that's why I think things like this are so important, because they connect us to those really, really important ancestral energies. So it's more than just like what's happening right now and, oh my God, the world's so crazy, and us being lost in our own thought bubbles and our society and everything. This takes us to this greater perspective. How has humanity evolved over thousands and thousands of years? What is our essential and unique cosmic function as a species? That's a question to ponder. More like even outside of just what's your own unique an essential cosmic function? Like, what are you here, not on this planet, but in this universe to do that only you can do? It's essential and unique. What is that role for humanity? What is humanity's essential and unique cosmic function? What are we here to do as a species that no other species in the universe can do? That's interesting to think about. I would contend one of those answers would be to be a guardian and a shepherd of this earth, because the other animals do a great job. You know, there's a lot of interesting science and observations of how other animals influence the environment, but no other species on this planet has the capability that we do to transform our planet for better or for worse. We can make our garden, our planet, a living paradise, or we can make it, you know, a wasteland. We see the expression of both those across time. The Amazon rainforest, there's so much science and study that has been done showing that it is effectively one giant garden that's been cultivated over thousands of years because of the preponderance of fruit trees in the Amazon. That's incredible. That could be the case everywhere. You go to Europe and you'll see fruit trees all over the place. When I travel through Europe, I'm like so happy because I can just grab an apricot or some cherries or some plums basically wherever I am. Whereas in the United States, to find a fruit tree is like, oh my God, like there's a fruit tree. How awesome is that? It's a very rare thing to find just random fruit trees out in the countryside or in the city or whatever. And, you know, in Europe, they're everywhere because over hundreds of years, they cultivated that. I think it's just a much more pleasing environment to be in when there's just this abundance of things that you can, you know, just abundance of things and food and energy and happiness and joy out there. Personally brings me a lot of joy when, you know, I come up and I see just this, you know, awesome apricot tree, and they're the best apricots. You don't get that in the States, unfortunately. So we could do that though. Like if everyone in the United States went out and started planting these fruit trees, Johnny Appleseed, then the United States could be a much more fruitful and abundant place as well in this aspect. So we see that, but instead we're getting the bees dying off, right? The bees, 80% of the bees this year have died off. 80% of colonies have collapsed. They've been poisoned by aluminum, supposedly. So we see the other expression of this, where we're forsaking our sacred responsibility and duties to be guardians and shepherds of the earth and all the light that she contains. That is our responsibility that we need to take very seriously. And collectively, humanity is not doing that. And Buckminster Fuller argues in his book, in the very opening chapter, he's like, we are headed towards self-annihilation because of the fact that we're we are straying from these ideals, and we're getting so hyper specialized that it's going to be probably our doom. Because if we look through the paleological record, all the animals that went extinct were highly super specialized. They weren't generalists. The generalists are the ones that survive. And we're straying further and further away from it. That's why so many of you resonate with the channel, because I look at all these things from a generalist perspective. And as a result, you can start to see those generalized principles that ring true, which is the underlying, you could say, mathematical code of reality, not these abstractions that aren't the truth. We're getting as close to the truth as we can progressively with this channel. That's the idea. That's the goal. And I'm not the only one doing it, thankfully, which is awesome. So if there's any questions, you can ask them, type at Stefan Burns. I'll answer a few questions and then we'll sign off. I'm wishing you well. We have this full moon coming up tonight, Venus station directly afterwards. And Mars and Jupiter are going to be, you know, over time expressing these increased energies that they've received from the sun. So I would say going all the way through into May, we have just in general kind of a heightened background energy field, especially if we look at it from the quantum perspective, not from like this hard science, oh, we have the measurements perspective. You know, we don't even have that many probes out there in the solar system, but we've seen where this energy is launched out. We see what's happening with like the Sunspot group there. We see the full moon. We know how it reflects the light, how it changes the information network that the Earth is currently experiencing, how there's no amplitude or intensity to information. It's just, is it there? Is it not there? And that triggers a change. It's the form of the quantum field that matters, not its amplitude. And how information is it actually travels faster than the speed of light. There's no limit to information in terms of, okay, it's radiating out like this fast. Information is formless. It doesn't have any weight to it, and it's just always there, and it can change instantly. So a very special time that we're in. I think there's actually a lot of nice, harmonious energies at this time that you kind of have to look for them, but they are there. So if you've been feeling a little down, sorry to hear that. Take a little bit of solace in this, perhaps. It costs nothing to be loving and nice, but it costs your self-esteem to be angry and mean. Wise words. G is saying, are you a polymath? Yeah, polymath. I think that's something that more people should strive to do. I don't think you're like born a polymath. I think some people, of course, have like better latent talents, but to be a polymath, you just have to study into a whole bunch of things, and those generalized principles that exist across all of them will start to appear in your vision. But you can't connect to those and see them and be able to then explain them or utilize them, whatever, if you just don't simply do the research into them. So if you're just on TikTok all the time, well, it's not going to work. But if you're doing the research and you have an open, curious mind, I think anyone can be a polymath. And Weather Moon May is asking, how long can sunspots last? They can last a long time. They can last weeks. We've seen sunspots survive multiple rotations, so even months. But I don't know of any sunspots that have lasted like longer than months. Typically, maybe 2 months maximum, something like that. I'm sure there's records of sunspots that have lasted longer, but at most about 1 to 2 months generally is the longest. Usually it's just like a week, 2 weeks or so. We love you for your positive vibrations, for being a good man that cares for nature. Yeah, I think that's really important to bring it back to that. Because again, like at the end of the day, that is our divine responsibility. And if we forsake that, then Earth may just be like, know what, time to get some new shepherds. Honestly, you failed the job. Like we have evidence of cataclysms on Earth, a lot of them. And if these things fundamentally are manifestations from the quantum field, right, then let's make sure the quantum field is happy with us. That's how I think that also starts with us. What's the energy that we're radiating and broadcasting, right? That makes up the quantum field. We are co-creators in this. There's God who created us in his image, and therefore we are all creating this together. So it's really important. It's really important. Peaceful healing energy to all. And Haji says, we affect the earth. If more of us loved ourselves than others, this would be a better place. Amen to that. DNA is a fractal antenna. That's how you connect to all these energies. That's one very powerful way that you connect these energies. There's another interesting point that Buckminster Fuller made in the beginning chapter of his book. I'm just starting to read his book. It's like 800 pages too. So, but he talked about how information, it's not necessarily, or maybe it was in this book, but it's not necessarily, there's like high quality information and low quality information. DNA is very high quality information because it's been built up over millions of years. Like our ancestors and other species, right? They worked hard to acquire their genetic code and DNA. And then you have other information, which, for example, could be lower quality, which is just like, the food that you're eating. Just, there's a certain amount of information with like the macronutrients and micronutrients and things of this nature. So be mindful of your DNA because it's very high quality information that goes back millions and millions of years. And so working with that energetically is really important because it is connecting, DNA is connecting to all these different energies. So being mindful of your energetic environment is one important way to work with your DNA and make sure it has this optimal expression. Are the plane crashes related to sun activity? I don't know. I think if they're related to anything, well, first off, there's technical glitches and stuff that happens. I think the media is also running with some of these plane crash stories because that's what the media does. It sometimes latches onto something and it promotes that a lot. So that's definitely a factor at play. But, we are in solar maximum. And so we do have more energy overall in the atmosphere. And we know that there's things like ball lightning, which are plasmoids that are existing in the atmosphere flying around and stuff. And, I think some of the stuff that we saw in New Jersey at the end of the 2024 and beginning of 2025, right around that time, I think that has to do with plasma orbs and stuff that people were seeing. It seems that there's more people seeing these things. I haven't verified, I can't verify as a single individual. No one can, all these different reports. But if there's so many people talking about it, there's something to it. I saw a lot of fake AI videos as it relates to these things back with like New Jersey and stuff, some really bad ones that people fell for. So, there's also people pumping it up with just fake content too, just to get clicks and stuff. But there's some level of truth with these reports, definitely. Because I had a viewer send me a video of a plasma ball. It's really interesting. I'm not sure it'd be easy to pull up. I could try. Let me see if I can show you this. This is like one of the best examples I've seen of a plasmoid. It's really, really interesting. So I think there's something happening, and with more energy coming in from solar maximum, especially because solar max 25 is, stronger than 24. This was out of our kind of collective consciousness for all the 2010s, going all the way back to the year 2000 or so. And so it seems to be different because we haven't had these sort of influences for like close to 20 years now. We're going to see this plasma ball that someone picked up in their backyard in New Zealand. Let's watch this one more time. Now it's a little slowed down. And here's the best shot of this right here. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Wow. So I think we'll actually leave it there. And, I could talk for hours. I could wax poetic for a long time, but we've discussed everything. We got a big full moon tonight, so go out and make sure you see the full moon tonight, and go check out that trine that's active between Sirius, Mars, and Jupiter. You'll find Sirius and Jupiter really easily. Then just look up and you'll find Mars. It's higher up in the sky at night. And now is the time to start cultivating these positive energies. Mercury is now direct again. Venus goes direct tomorrow. And so we have forward movement again in just our planetary resonances. So if you've been feeling like things have taken they've slowed down or even gone backwards for a while, they have. Like I have my workout log. I didn't make any progress on my incline bench press during Venus retrograde. Don't ask me why, but I didn't. But then just 2 days ago, all of a sudden, boom, started setting a new PRs on my incline bench press. So we have forward momentum now. Work with that. Utilize that. What is your essential and unique cosmic function? Discover that, meditate to find out what that is, and then charge forward and bring that into existence, manifest that. That is my recommendation. Here to support you along the way. I have all my holistic wellness products on Wild Free Organic, the different tea blends, spirituality, which is excellent for helping you to connect to your inner spirit and these energies from the sun and from the earth and through your dream state and through meditation and more. That's all on the website. Tranquility, helping you with these things as well. Things like herb coffee, which helps you to get into that creative flow state, potentiate the brain, make it a little bit more neuroplastic because of the lion's mane mushroom. And I don't just dust it. 12.5% of this is lion's mane mushroom. So you get a good amount, a really good amount of lion's mane with herb coffee. Then I have the earthing shoes. All these things help to support you by building that energetic connection to the earth to receive these very special energies that are occurring right now due to solar maximum and earth electrification, earth evolution. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's at least what I believe. I recommend everyone has their own beliefs, but that's what I believe. I think that's what a lot of people believe. And that is what I'm here to do, to present this information, create this content, educate others. And then also I'm exploring into how I can manipulate reality with these products, right? With tea blends, with the shoes, the crystals, like all these things help you to work with your energy field in a much more accomplished way. And by doing that, you can accelerate this spiritual evolution journey, this consciousness evolution process. So that is what the channel is all about. If you like that, please subscribe. Hope to see you here. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Smash that like button. Wishing all of you well. Have a wonderful full moon tonight. Venus turning direct, and I'll see you all very, very soon.